being loo nto leyo uzisondeze ebantwini ndibulise ke umzonke we-PAC nabo bonke abantu bakuthi abalapha namagosa aseburhulumenteni njalo njalo. The liberation struggle produced, as we know, revered freedom fighters whose commitment to the cause of a democratic and free South Africa, human rights in South Africa. The gains we have made as a country were nourished from the blood of our liberation stalwarts, who were subjected to the harshest of conditions imaginable by the brutal and inhumane racist apartheid regime. Defeating apartheid may have seemed far out of reach to others, but their generation of Sobukwe, gave hope and purpose towards the attainment of freedom and democracy in South Africa. Former Deputy Justice, Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke captured correctly what Sobukwe stood for in a speech during the unveiling of a plaque renaming Wits University Central Block in his honor, when he said, "Every nation, every people, from time to time, yields from amongst its very own a truly courageous, selfless, and visionary patriot who stands tall and apart from the rest," close quote. This description befits Sobukwe. He indeed stood tall and was truly courageous. Even though Sobukwe stood for peace, tolerance, and respect for others, the apartheid regime was greatly disturbed by his courage and saw it fit to pass a law, as has been said, through its racist parliament, directing that he be indefinitely incarcerated on Robben Island. This is how the regime attempted to suppress his ideas and convictions. But they failed because his ideas resonated with society and were rallying points for mass action in the fight for freedom and democracy. Today's generation must know that our road to democracy cost many lives. Without leaders such as Sobukwe, freedom and democracy would not have been attained. Sobukwe was insightful, pragmatic, and imparted among his peers love and not hate. He displayed humanity to his enemies. He always preached that he hated nobody, despite the harsh treatment that the apartheid regime meted out to him. Uhlati personified values that define us as Africans and the potential that lives inside all of us. He was an extraordinary leader who reminded us how a truly selfless servant of the people conducts himself. This year, as we celebrate 28 years of democracy in South Africa, we dare not forget that the rebirth of this great nation came as a result of countless struggles waged by heroes and heroines of our people. It did not fall from the sky. Our liberation struggle achieved the right to self-determination by our people, and our greatest achievement, the Constitution, faulty as it is in the eyes of some, should continue to manifest in all facets of society. Every South African must contribute towards deepening democracy and democratic practices in honor of Sobukwe and others. It is important that as we commemorate Human Rights Month, we commit ourselves never to allow anything that diminishes the rights of South Africans to transpire. Sobukwe was also a consummate Pan-Africanist who pursued an agenda of a united and developed Africa. The best way to honor his memory is to realize this unparalleled vision of a better South Africa and a united Africa. We must also vigorously confront the challenges facing our people, such as poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Let the memory of Sobukwe inspire us to uphold human rights in South Africa and to build a united and non-racist South Africa that truly belongs to all those who live in it, black and white. I thank you.
Remember, Sobukwe, remember. Yes. Actually, I'm saying this because I'm also remembering something. I cannot not share this story when I am within this family of the Africans. When I started working somewhere there in the Eastern Cape, it was just my first year of working. Yes, I was doing some smaller things in terms of the repatriation committee of the time. And then something happened, Deputy Minister, you will know maybe this story, that something big happened in a place called Cambridge in East London. And some white people, they lost lives there. And then the next morning, the CEO, if I was to say he was the CEO, called MD of the time in the organization, he walks in and looks around and pick on two people, young and tiny and thin. And I was one of them. And I was told, you are part of APLA. And from there, everything got loose and I lost my job. Truly so. I lost my job, but what that did, it made me to search deeper. What is APLA? What is APLA about? What? And I'm just saying in a brief, that was my connection to the movement and seeking to understand what the movement is all about. What an irony, something that made me lose my job and the first job. It triggers an interest for me to know it better and to stay closer to what it is all about. That was just in passing, but a true story. On this note, I think I want to say I am just about to introduce our Minister Nathi Mthethwa, Minister for Sport, Arts and Culture. But Minister, you don't rise up. When I finish speaking, the creative sector will do something nice for you. And only when they finish that piece, you will rise up. But let me just do a small thing because our guests have increased. I want to recognize amongst us former Robben Islanders who were with Baba Robert Sobukwe during those times. Amongst us we have Baba Mabuse, we have maybe Ken Wave, have Baba Masalo. Thank you. I nearly said amen. Baba Mahlangu as well is amongst us. Welcome. And on that note, as I say, I am welcoming Minister, but I don't want to do the traditional, the life of a politician, he was there. I want to say, this is the person whom I think will be able to unpack in his speech what I kind of interfaced with, that was talking about Baba Robert Sobukwe, which was prefaced, how can a man die better? A life of Robert Sobukwe. And something else that I interfaced with, that was saying, what a sense of a mission. And I think Minister Nathi Mthethwa will be able to unpack those when he is speaking to us. Creative sector, please do your thing. Show the other life of Minister Mthethwa in terms of what he nurtures. Thank you.
Robert Lutu, Nanga Mabunu, Ayastelela, Robert Sobukwe, Zef Motupe, Nanga Mabunu, Ayastelela, Robert Sobukwe, Albert Lutu, Nanga Mabunu, Ayastelela, Sinigi Eke, Sinigi Eke, Ayastelela, Sinigi Eke, Sinigi Eke, Sobukwe Zefmutupek Nanka Mabunu Ayastelela Robert Sobukwe Albelutut Donka Mabunu Ayastelela Sinigi Eke Wema Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Parents Makwetu Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Stanley Mukhuba Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Robert Sobukwe Zefmutupek Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Robert Sobukwe Zefmutupek Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Ayastelela Sinigi Eke Sinigi Eke Ayastelela
Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please, for the team. Yeah, I thought that Africa are gifted. When they sound, there's going to be movement. Hey, sorry, man. To our program director, Didi Chikwatamba, good afternoon. Sanbonani nonke molweni. Dumelang. Apshin. Lochan. Ndawiando. The family of Sobukwe here with us. To the Deputy Minister of Justice and Correctional Service, who is our host today. We are hosted Ujutima Africa, ni hostwe ijele. Umphathi wamajele host yenu namhlanje. I don't know how many people would be keen to be hosted. To the President of Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, Comrade Mzwanele Nyotso, who's also a member of Parliament representing the PAC. As has been said, the former presidents who are here with us. I've always asked myself, what happened to someone who's been a president and is no longer a president? Because the president is the highest, isn't it? Beyond that, what? So this I've thought about over years, but I had no answer to. I only got an answer this morning, that what's the higher level of beyond the president. So former President Letlapa Mphahlele told me that the highest point is what he is today. He's the bodyguard of the president. I thought, I'm not sure whether I would volunteer that position. But to former President Dr. Pego, you're most welcome, President. Izweletu. Matla. Thank you very much. Today really is a special day, and I extend my warmest greetings to all of you present on this special occasion to honor this African son, Professor Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe. I consider it a great privilege and honor that once again we are here at Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Center to launch this important exhibition as we were here a few days ago when we officially launched the 2022 Human Rights Month. President Nyoso, you spoke about the voice of the president, of President Sobukwe. Last week, we agreed with the area commissioner of this center that they must work doubly hard. Area Commissioner Kgosi here, who welcomed us. Thank you, Area Commissioner. They must work doubly hard to locate the cell of Sobukwe. It can't be that there's no record of that. And part of finding the voice, President, is also finding the cell. The cell and the voice go together. It's the cell, it's the voice. So the area commissioner promised me that they will do that because it's not for us. Akusiye yethu le ndaba yama-Afrika ifuna iqhutshwe phambili. Not only it's apt that as we shall unveil Professor Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe's exhibition today, we are doing this during a month in which we generally commemorate as human rights. Rather, it is also of such poignant symbolic significance that we are here at the former Pretoria Central Prison, which has been renamed Kgosi Mampuru II Correctional Center. And our launch for human rights emanates from the champions of human rights, those who laid their lives for this land, for the return of the land, those who fought against apartheid. Professor Sobukwe, who led the march in 1960, he was pursuing human rights for the majority of the African people. So when people talk of human rights activists and fighters, must know that Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe was at the forefront of fighting for human rights. During apartheid, this prison was the epicenter of capital punishment. It was this prison, Pretoria Central Prison, that administered the hanging of patriots such as Vuyisile Mini, Wilson Kaingo, Znagele Mkaba, Nolali Mpense, Daniel Ndongeni, Samuel Jonas, Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu, to mention just a few. Fundamental human rights were violated here. It is therefore no coincidence that on this occasion, as we unveil this very important exhibition, we do it in a place that has seen so much innocent blood shed. Professor Sobukwe stands tall in our collective memory amongst many of his contemporaries who dared to challenge the immorality of the white apartheid state, born to Hubert and Angelina Sobukwe on the 5th of December 1924, Ehafu, in the then Cape Province. He was the youngest of the 5 boys and 1 girl. As a son of a municipal laborer and domestic worker, very few, if any, would have foretold the global impact this African patriot from humble beginnings in a little known town of Graaff-Reinet or Ehafu. It was clear very early during his formative years that Sobukwe was no ordinary youngster. He passed the standard 6 at ease, after which he pursued a teaching qualification, though sadly he inexplicably not placed by education authorities upon competition of his primary teacher's training course. Whilst his temporal setback may have set the to discourage him, Sobukwe had none of that, a clear sign that he had been called for a much greater cause. the kind of cause that would demand of him a life of service and sacrifice, an icon and an anti-apartheid struggle, and schooled in the mass movement, and he graduated in the University of Mass Struggles. Sobukwe stands head and shoulder amongst giants of our liberation struggle. His was a life of service and sacrifice. I'm grateful to the leadership of the PAC, his political home, as well as the Sobukwe family for showing and sharing this very important icon with everyone, such that they saw it fit that we honor this giant in this particular way. I'm equally grateful to the University of Vets and those that worked at curating this very exhibition. This is one of the clearest markers of institutions of higher learning which are conscious about the particularities of their location in the continent and in this country in particular, and thus remain connected to the very community that an institution finds itself. This is transformative and quite frankly refreshing. I dare say that Professor Sobukwe is a much larger figure in this nation's history. He remained committed to the total emancipation of all the oppressed, and he did this on many fronts. From the time he taught at school, leading the branch of the ANC as a lecturer in the African Studies at Wits University, and ultimately as the president of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azani. He's a global statesman, a Pan-Africanist par excellence, a defender of fundamental human rights, a scholar and public intellectual. Like Mandela, his life story transcends party politics. As we memorialize his legacy, as we pay tribute to him, we must do so mindful of the many facets of his life. The question for us today, therefore, is what should his story mean to all of us? In this context of moral and ethical decay and crass materialism of our society, in the context of the current environment, in the second phase of transition, where the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment looms larger, and on the main, it is the African majority that is shouldering a disproportionate burden of these challenges. Would Professor take a dim view of our current national project on social cohesion and nation building? And with so many women and young girls falling victims to gender-based violence and femicide, what would have been his view on the nature of South African society as it is currently? I'm no prophet and I can't claim to be one. I do not for a moment seek to suppose that I quite accurately second guess him on what his take would be on the current state of play. However, I can say it without any fear of contradiction and without equivocation that Professor Sobukwe would have implored all of us to set this country on the path towards moral regeneration and would have supported our efforts towards social cohesion and nation building project, which seeks to address the historical injustice, bridge socio-historical divisions that exist in society today. The unity amongst African people would have been one of the issues. I don't think that he would have been happy with the disunity amongst African people. I don't think that he would have been particularly pleased that we have been reduced so much that we see each other as enemies and leave the real enemy, which continues to loom large on the shoulders of the African majority. I don't think that he would have pat ourselves on the back when he would have witnessed young girls, women being killed, being harmed in the hands of men who are supposed to be protectors of society. I think that Professor Sobukwe would have taken a dim view on the rampant unemployment, especially amongst young people, inequality in our society and poverty, all of which continue to be haunting our society. However, I think he will also equally acknowledge practical efforts to redress, which, though not enough, have improved many lives since the dawn of democracy in '94. Basic services such as clean running water, public health, public education, and housing have been commonplace since the attainment of political freedom, and which dare add, it is not enough. Not enough for the people he loves so dearly, the wretched of the earth, those who are in the far-flung areas of our country, in the rural areas and all the corners of the majority of the people. There are more black students in our higher education system than there has ever been before. And while not wholly adequate, then the student financial assistance is there to ensure that gifted children from some of the poorest households are also afforded the opportunity. These are some of the things which Professor Sobukwe and his contemporaries could not get, was denied deliberately by government. In dealing with inequality and unemployment, we could do more in ensuring that the legislative and policy instruments we have put in place have more teeth in bringing about the desired social change. It is incumbent on us that we do everything in our power. EPAC ke ayikwazi ukuthi ingaba isitha sombutho wesizwe olawula lelizwe namhlanje, ngoba lo mbutho olawula lelizwe ngumkhuluwa wePAC. So awukwazi ukuba luchaba nomkhuluwa wakho. Ngaleyo ndlela, it is in the interest of the governing party to ensure that it does everything in its power to honor, to respect, to preserve the legacy of Professor Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe. People should not at any point be tempted to allow divisions amongst the oppressed people. Ngoba uma nilwa nicindezelwe nilwelana lwela ama-crimes, you have to work together because as has been said before, these leaders were conversing amongst themselves. They were conversing about the future of this country. Sobukwe, Mandela, and their contemporaries, the Tambos of this world. They were not at war with each other. So it is for us to ensure that what they lived for is known, including getting the voice and the cell. And in this regard, the governing party does not pretend also to have the monopoly of ideas. It is up to progressive formations like the Pan-Africanist Congress and all sectors of society to join the crusade in the national effort and in the national interest. Social cohesion and nation building has to be started and be led by the majority, the African majority in this country. I look forward to the spirited debate later on, which should point to us where to from here. And that debate would be predicated or premised from the very understanding that here we're talking about the human rights activist in the Human Rights Month. So when we coined the theme, the year of national unity and renewal, preserving and protecting human rights gains, we had Professor Sobukwe in our minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Hey, Minister Khulumeni indaba lapha uthi nize ucela uhostwa lapha eprison. Lento ingikhumbuzeke enye indaba yokuthi wayikhona ubaba Sobukwe amadoda aqoqana from Dube Phefeni Orlando West kwahanjwa bethi bacela ukuhostwa lapha epolice station. Kwenzeke enye into ke. So I hope size kahle lapha sicela ukuhostwa iphelele lapho. And iphelele lapho. All right. On this note, I think I must do something. Ngicela ukuthi nje ke kube mdaka nje lapha. Angithi labe ngibabhekile bayazi ukuthi ngisho ukuthini. Mangithi ngicela ke kube mdaka nje kungqolwe. Kubonakala ukuthi siya celebrate. Siyenze ngalendlela abayenza ngayo imishado lapha eEastern Cape. eEastern Cape makunemishado kuphuma ingoma ngapha kuphuma ingoma ngapha kuphuma ingoma ngapha kuphuma ingoma ngapha bonakala ukuthi kohluleka abantu. So ngizocela ke ukuthi kwenzeke lokho kube mdaka kuphuma ingoma ngapha angazi nokuthi ngizothi kube ngcwele kuphuma ingoma ngapha but kuzophuma ingoma kabili. After that a poet jumps, and whilst that is happening I am inviting to come and be closer to me, Miss Naniki, Queen Malisa, to walk up the podium so that we can coordinate ourselves whilst ingoma iphuma ngapha ingcolisa ukuhlala nalapha kube yakubangcwele yebo. Queen Malisa